Hello and welcome to another episode of Long Live Canada. I'm Daniel Tyree. I'm the founder and chairman of the Dominion Society, but tonight I am your host. We have another great episode ahead of us where I want to talk a bit about some big news about immigration over the last week. I want to talk about the warring op-eds in the Western Standard over the last couple of days. And I want to talk about some other topics, some more cultural stuff. I want to talk a bit about the controversy around the new Harry Potter series. I want to talk about a bit about the FIFA World Cup. So you guys will have to put up with me talking a bit about my hobbies and interests, but it'll all be through the lens of identity, as per usual. Before we get into things, I like everyone making fun of me for my hair. I did get a nice haircut. It's the start of the spring, officially the start of spring this week. So we cleared things up a bit. I hope you guys still like it. It's a bit short for my taste, but it'll grow back in. So I like that you guys are making fun of me. I'm just fashionably late. That's how I like to go about things. I'm doing some last minute cramming, making sure we have a good show for you guys. I appreciate you being patient as I get around to getting things started. What did you guys think about that new intro loop? It's a bit simpler than what we had before, but I think it's nice. I think it's some Kino. We got some nice Red Ensign. We got some nice lo-fi. If you guys have any suggestions for better music, let me know. I'll switch things up. We'll change it up week to week. Try and keep things spicy. But I like it. I like it. We got the nice heritage aesthetics. It was made by one of our great volunteers there in the propaganda wing. If you guys are looking to help out, you guys looking to make some content for us, especially if you're a member, let us know. We'll get you plugged in with the rest of the team and continue to scale up our media operations, which have really been growing over the last 2 or 3 weeks. But with that intro stuff out of the way, I do want to jump right into things. There was a few articles that came up over the last few days that I thought it might be fun to look into a little bit while we get things rolling for this week before we're dumping into some of the more spicy, controversial stuff today. You're right. I missed my Dom sock pin. Oh no, what am I doing, man? My brand is all off. Let's go for the. Yeah, I got a special one for you guys. The suspense. We got Long Live Canada today. We'll ignore that it's backwards on the live stream. Long Live Canada, if appropriate for the rebrand of the show. We always got pins here at the Dominion Society. We can never get enough pins and buttons. That's my story. Got to make sure we got the brand. The aesthetics matter. It's important. I forgot my tie too. I'm late and I didn't even prepare properly for you guys. Well, you'll have to put up with me. You'll have to put up with it. Okay. Let's get things rolling. Ignore all my mistakes. Let's keep going. Plowing through. I want to start off with an article here in the Toronto Star. Here we go. What do you think? Big or small? Big or small? So we have this article here in Canada's immigration bill may compromise rights, UN committee says. This is all about the UN's response to Mark Carney's new Bill C-12. This has been kind of flying under the radar. There hasn't been a lot of focus on this new border security bill coming down from the Liberal government. There's been a lot of attention this week on stuff like Bill C-9 and stuff, other important things. But this has been going on for since the summer, and people don't talk about it very much. And to be honest, this bill is pretty based. And you can tell because the UN and the Toronto Star are seething about it. So let's run through this article a bit. We can look at the bill a bit as well. But Miss Ghada Al-Sharif, who is the immigration and work reporter for the Toronto Star, you can't make this stuff up, is really trying her best to make me like Mark Carney. She starts off right off the bat. The United Nations Human Rights Committee is sounding the alarm over Canada's immigration and borders bill, saying its measures may weaken refugee protection and compromise the country's compliance with international human rights obligations. Based. The new committee report issued Monday, which examined Canada's compliance with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, said Canada should ensure asylum seekers have unfettered access to its territory and fair procedures. It called for safeguards ensuring this principle under international human rights law, and no one should be returned to the country where they would face torture or serious human rights violations. So, for some context, Bill C-12 is this new border bills. There's some stuff in there about money laundering as well, but the main focus is around the asylum system, around refugees. And there are some, frankly, some good changes in there, particularly this one here in the next covered in the next paragraph. Bill C-12 proposes to bar people who first came to Canada more than a year ago from filing refugee claims with the Immigrant and Refugee Board, Canada's main asylum review body. The legislation would require anyone in that category to apply for pre-removal risk assessment, which is normally a measure for rejected asylum claimants. Now, this is a totally moderate and sensible policy. The reason that they're cutting this off, making it so that you can't apply for refugee status if you've been in the country already for more than a year, is to synergize with the Carney government's new cuts to specifically the temporary foreign worker program and the foreign student program. As a result of these cuts, there has been a lot of people suggesting and a lot of attempts for these students and temporary foreign workers, these people on temporary visas, to try and game the system and stay in the country by then applying for asylum status. This would let them sit in that backlog system and get access to all sorts of social programs. The Carney government is preventing that through this new Bill C-12. So if they have already been in the country for a year, 2 years, 3 years studying or whatever, they are now not going to be able to game the system by pretending they're refugees. And the UN, the STAR, they're clutching their pearls over it as if there's a risk here. But even then, they have included this step. They have allowed for a pre-removal risk assessment. They're just not letting them apply for refugee status in order to avoid removal. And again, like this is very sensible. Their temporary visa is ending. They should be forced to leave, and the Carney government is putting precautions in place to avoid these people gaming the system. This is very sensible, and the UN and the STAR are screaming about it as if it's some sort of radical policy. So the other very interesting thing about Bill C-12 is it allows the government to like kind of sweeping powers to revoke and cancel asylum claimants, refugees that are being processed if it's deemed in the national interest. This is another controversial point of this bill that they're whining about in the STAR. I'm just trying to find the quote here now. There's so many hilarious lines in this article. If the government has no shame about ignoring the UN Human Rights Committee, then what does it say about Canada and this government committing to upholding international human rights law? Oh no, they're not going to uphold international law. Oh no, they don't respect the United Nations. Like they're really trying their hardest to make me like Mark Carney here. But wow, we're enforcing our borders. Wow, it's so unacceptable. Here we go. Bill C-12 would also give the government the power to stop accepting new immigration applications or cancel existing application when it decides it's in the public interest. Immigration Minister Leena Diab and the department officials have previously said the public interest is kept intentionally vague in the bill, which has yet to become law, to give the government leeway to approach a range of future situations such as pandemics or espionage threats. Like, this is a good piece of legislation, and think about the hypothetical. Like, if a more anti-immigrant party were to come to power subsequent to Mark Carney, they wouldn't even have to advance new legislation in order to quickly clean up our asylum system. They could simply deem they could use this very intentionally vague language, rethink how we consider the national interest, and completely shut down pretty much everyone in the asylum system. This is a bold piece of legislation, and I think it's like, when we put forward these pretty new and radical reforms on the immigration system, people like to fearmonger and say, oh, people will never put up with that, people will never accept it. But like, Bill C-12 is a perfect example. Like, this is a great example of legislation that a nationalist government could advance. And look at the public sentiment. No one even cares. No one's paying attention to this at all. Yes, the UN's shrieking, but like, is there any, like, do average Canadians out on the street even know about this? Like, this is just going on in the background. No one cares. They're going to clean up the system. People will be happy for it. Inflation will go down. Government spending will go down. It's all heading in the right direction. And like, just to compare how scared and cowardly the Conservatives are in this on this issue, because they're so worried of the way that it'll be perceived in immigrant communities. They're so concerned about backlash from the media, whereas the Liberals just plow ahead, with much more radical policy than what the CPC advances. In fact, the CPC has criticized the Liberals for this very piece, where they can en masse cancel people in the refugee system. Let's watch this clip I have from Michelle Rempel grilling Lena Diab on this very topic.
Government, the ability to kick mass groups of people out, undefined, who they don't like. That's what it sounds like to me. You're not being specific with regard to safeguards here. You're literally asking Parliament to circumvent laws that protect charter rights, and to mass cancel entire groups of people who could be here. And you can't say who. How could I go to like ethnic groups in my community and say that I could vote for this? This is actually bananas and so anti-Canadian. So what are those specific safeguards? You haven't defined it in the legislation. You're sitting here blathering, and like, you're literally asking us to say, yeah, we should give the government to right to just cancel mass PRs. Like imagine you sitting on Red FM tomorrow. Are you going to be saying the same thing to them that you're saying to me now?
Absolutely, yes, I will be.
Thank you for that. This is how you run a country. You ask Parliament.
Just an absurd clip. First of all, I have to say, Lena Diab, it's hard to watch her whenever she's in a press conference or anything like that. She has to keep blinking. I don't know if it's a nervous tick or she has dry eyes or what's up with that, but I'm going to start calling her Blinky. But it's just an absurd clip there from Michelle Rempel, who's the Conservative Party's immigration critic. First of all, she's misrepresenting the law. I wish it was to cancel PRs en masse. That would be even more based. This is just for refugee and asylum claims. And she's like, how can I justify this to immigrants in my riding? How would you justify this on immigrant media, Red FM? It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, the people often criticize me for attacking the Conservatives too much, especially after this stunt, the Conserve What thing back a couple months ago. But the reality is, like, the time and time again, it seems like the Liberals are further right on this issue than the Conservatives are. And yes, I agree. I see people in the chat saying, "Oh, it doesn't go far enough." Like, obviously, I agree, but this is clearly a step in the right direction. And obviously, this legislation is not going to be wielded to the most extreme use. Like, hypothetically, once this becomes law, they could just cancel everyone in the queue. There's like 400, 500,000 current asylum claims that are in the system. Hypothetically, they could say it's in the national interest, we're canceling them all and sending them back. Obviously, they're not going to do that. Obviously, Carney's not that based. But they could, and that's what the legislation does allow. So we have to consider this a W, and not only are the UN and the Star shrieking, but like the Conservatives are shrieking too. Like it's actually ridiculous. Michelle Rumpel's gotta give her head a shake after this one, I think. So interesting to see. Again, I don't support Cordy, I don't support Polyev, but articles like this in the Star really make me start to think twice. So the other article I wanted to bring up that came up this week is about the international student system. Did you talk about? No, I haven't talked about Harry Potter yet. I'll talk about that towards the end. Sorry, this is what I meant to click on. Let's see what the chat's saying. I'll try and interact with the chat a little bit more. I'm still getting used to this live stream thing, guys. It's new for me. I've been having fun with it, but it's new. I'm seeing lots of familiar names in the chat. Lots of volunteers. I love to see you guys tuning in. Pierre should at least reduce it to 200K. At least. We need a complete moratorium. When will the end be? I'm not quite sure. I think this will be a bit of a long show. I have a lot to say tonight. Let's talk about this article. So, only a fraction of the 153 flagged international students were investigated. This is just an absurd standard within our immigration system. Canada's immigration department only conducted 4,000 investigations in 2023 and 2024 out of 153 total cases of potential non-compliance under Canada's international student program, according to a new report by the Auditor General released on Monday. For context, there's about, I think, 2 million foreign students in the country over this period. The report nearly 93% of the 700 Canadian learning institutions submitted reports between 2023 and 2024 that flagged the 153,000 cases as potential fraud or non-compliance. But the department only has funding to investigate 2,000 cases annually. Like, this is a tiny percent of the overall student body. Like, we're letting in 2 million at any given time, and we only have the capacity to investigate 2,000. Like, the numbers are completely out of whack with the government's capacity. About 41% of these cases could not be closed because of a lack of response from the students. Absolutely absurd. Like, what are the standards for international students in this country? Like, if you're living in a foreign country temporarily and the government reaches out to you, like, put yourself in that shoes. If you were studying in Germany or England or whatever, and the government reached out to you, would you not respond? Like, no, of course you would be like, oh no, like, what? No, am I going to get kicked out? Like, I do everything you can to be compliant with the government. That's what normal serious students would do, right? But these people are gaming the system, right? They think that they can ignore the government and get away with it. And obviously they can. The government doesn't have the capacity to keep up with these people. So the programs just obviously ballooned too large. If our government can't manage the system, if we can't make sure people are leaving at the end of their permits, if we can't make sure that we're expunging any fraud from the system, like, obviously the numbers need to be drastically reduced. Like, again, you can have I have a more ideological stance on this issue, but just from a common sense normie perspective, like, if the government can't manage the size of the system, it's too big. That's simple. There's more from this article I wanted to touch on. I'll have to get back to you on that. Like, Lena Diab doesn't even understand her department. Here, I'll bring it back up. In 2024, the department forecasted an approval of 348,900 new study permits in 2024. That's insane. For context, the Carney government has reduced this by less than half. We're only taking in 155K this year. A significant reduction compared to the years past. I think it was just the end of the article I wanted to touch on. The Auditor General's office looked at 450,000 students whose study permits were expired in 2024 and found that 93% were allowed to remain in Canada. Why? Why are the large majority of these students being allowed to stay at the end of their term? Many of them get additional permits through the International Mobility Program. So that takes up much of the case of it, but many of them are just staying here illegally or applying for asylum status. That's why Bill C-12 is cutting back on this. Of the 39,500 individuals who should no longer be in Canada, the Auditor General's office confirmed with the CBSA that 16,000 had left the country. Less than half have left the country. Like, these people are just staying here illegally. I think the Auditor General's report today underscores the fact that there aren't adequate checks and balances to forbade fraud, says Michelle Rempel. This is very clear. So Michelle's right on this issue. She's wrong on the other one, but she's right on this one. And this is just another example of how dysfunctional Canada's immigration system is. We cannot properly administer it. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. This year they're cutting it back because it's so dysfunctional. But really, we need to have very high standards for international students. Like, I think there is, even if we're massively cutting back, even if we're implementing remigration, I think there is a place for international students. But we need to be much more choosy. These people, we should be prioritizing, like, more similarly, cultural, ethnically, linguistically, we should be prioritizing countries that are more similar to Canada, people that will integrate more effectively into our culture. There should be strong standards around not working, so people can't game the system, and it should be only in numbers that we can properly enforce standards around things like fraud and enforcing our basic laws like this. There is some value to having international students, especially at the peak kind of institutions, because it does give you international credibility, which brings more credibility to our universities, which positively impacts our own human capital, our own people because mostly it's Canadians being educated at Canadian universities, obviously. So there is a logic to having some international students in order to bring credibility to our biggest schools. But they said at the start of this, it's 700 schools. Many of these are diploma mills. Many of these are small institutions. International students, in reality, have just become a kind of profit motive for these schools, who just view them as kind of cash cows. And that sort of economization of our education system has created all these downstream effects that has led to all this fraud, that has led to the system being abused as a kind of de facto work permit type situation. So we need to really crack down. It should be only elite institutions bringing these students in. The price should be very high. The countries that we source them from should be very narrow. We need to completely rethink how the international student program works, because it's clear that there's too much fraud and we cannot properly administer the system. So those are the big updates on the immigration side of things. The next big topic I wanted to go into, let's check on the chat, see if anyone's saying anything interesting. The next big thing I want to talk about is the warring op-eds in the Western Standard. If you guys follow me on Twitter or whatnot, you've probably seen some of this at least. But I think this has been a pretty interesting back and forth. So the Western Standard has been pretty fair to our organization. They interviewed me when I was in Calgary. They covered our protests there. They even covered our launch back in July. And a couple of weeks ago, they published an op-ed from me. I think this was about 2 weeks ago now. Let me pull it up. I need a producer, guys. I need a producer. It's too much work doing this show solo. Here we go. Tyree, what is a Canadian? Canada is a nation of distinct people with a shared history and culture. Before we get into anything, I have to. The one piece of criticism I have for the Western Standard is, what is this kind of AI slop image? You couldn't find a nicer image of Heritage Canada. I feel like it's undermining my article to put this picture at the top of it. But we'll call it we'll just call it outrage bait. We'll call it engagement bait for all the people that were complaining about the picture. I didn't select it. I didn't submit it. They imposed that on me. So I would like to register my dissatisfaction with Mr. Fildebrand with his editorial choice here on the image. But I do recommend people check this out. I mean, if you guys have been following me, you guys are going to be mostly familiar with these talking points. The main thrust of this is kind of a response. I actually wrote this a couple of months ago. I didn't get around to publishing it until recently. I was initially inspired to write this when the Without Diminishment crew had come up. I had been in arguments with Rupa Subramanya and stuff about what a Canadian is. There's in the post 2025 election period, there seems to be a kind of flexibility and interest in how we should redefine the conservative movement, but so often I see these kind of big C conservatives, and all they want to conserve is Pierre Trudeau era multiculturalism, liberalism. No one can answer this question. What is a Canadian, right? It's just anyone with his citizenship is Canadian. Canada's a nation of immigrants. Canada's a cultural mosaic. And people just don't understand the history. So this is a very surface level piece. I wouldn't say it's a complete answer on Canadian identity or anything, but it does kind of give people an introduction to the foundation of Canadian history. So we run through all the greatest hits. Canada's not a nation of immigrants. We're a nation of settlers, builders, and explorers. We reinforce that distinction. Immigrants and settlers are not the same thing. Immigrants come to a country that's already built and take advantage of our wealth and opportunity. Settlers come to an open wilderness. They risk everything to cross an open ocean, carve civilization out of a frontier, and make institutions, make laws. Like there's a fundamental disconnect between a settler and an immigrant. So to just say Canada's a nation of immigrants is completely disingenuous and really just props up the modern multiculturalist system. So we really need to reject this concept. That's why I was so triggered last week with Polyev on Rogan when he was parroting that talking point. Like that needs to be removed completely from public life. So I introduced this kind of dual concept that I've talked about before. Ethnic Canadians and heritage Canadians. I explained the kind of ethnogenesis of the Scottish, English, Irish, French in the St. Lawrence Valley over hundreds of years that founded unique ethnic groups, Anglo and French Canadians. And then how we extend that definition to the more recent European settlers who helped settle Northern Ontario and Western Canada, starting in the 1900s, who were then integrated into Canadian society. But I explained that this diversification is overstated, that the majority of settlers in Western Canada were still of British stock, of Canadian stock, of Anglo stock from the US. Just pretty normie friendly arguments to remind people that there is a part of Canadian history before Pierre Trudeau era multiculturalism, nation of immigrants. All these things that the average person would just go to if you ask them to describe what a Canadian is or what Canadian identity was, right? The first thing that'll come out of their mouths is tolerance and multiculturalism and all these things, when that's not really an accurate depiction of our story. So yeah, and then I run through the numbers. 1867, Canada was 97% Anglo-French, about 2% Native. Even in 1971, Canada was 72% Anglo-French and 97% European. Just running through the numbers, because while this isn't everything. People don't know this part of our history, and it's an important to understand this part of this foundation, especially because while we're having this broader discussion on this adjustment in the conservative movement, we can't just exist within this. We can't just conserve Trudeau era multiculturalism, Trudeau era liberalism. Like, we need to actually, especially in this era post Trudeau Jr., where our country's been like so radically demographically transformed. Like, we actually need to go back. We can't just conserve the system. We can't just put it on pause. We need to reverse things. So while we're having this open conversation, I think it's important that we remember that Canadian history didn't start in 1971. It actually started it started before 1867, right? It goes back to the 1600s. We have to remember the entirety of our history to really understand Canadian identity. So I knew publishing this would, set people's hair on fire. I expected, pushback from the usual suspects, the anti-hates, the press progresses. They always like I do complain about people not giving me a platform, people not engaging in discussions, people not having me on for interviews. But the reality is, everyone that publishes my op-eds, that has me on for their show, they get harassed by left-wing activists for weeks afterwards. They get harassed by Press Progress. Like, look it up. Like, Juno News got a Press Progress hit piece after they gave me that interview. The Western Standard, they got a Press Progress hit piece. Like, they just get harassed by these Antifa journalists. But what I didn't necessarily expect was responses from people on the more conservative side, because we all know that I'm on a pretty big blacklist, especially after this, a pretty big blacklist from the conservatives. Now, about a week after, actually a few days after, I heard that someone was considering submitting a response piece, and ultimately she did. So we got a response here from Dimpy Brar. To be honest, I had not heard of this woman before this interaction. So I had to look into her a little bit. She is the Director of Engagement of Allies for a Strong Canada. Dimpy and I, it's hard to keep a straight face. It's a pretty out there name. Dimpy and I were supposed to actually have a debate on the Western Standard platform on this topic. It was supposed to take place earlier this week, actually, but she ended up pulling out for some reason. I don't know why. But just like anyone who platforms me gets harassed by anti-hate type journalists, there's all sorts of people on the conservative side of the spectrum that are whispering in people's ears saying, no, you can't do that. Don't engage with him. Don't give him a platform. Don't give him any attention. Nothing good can come of that. You'd think the conservatives, who have been going on about the open market of ideas, free speech, all this stuff, they claim to hold these values so dearly, but as soon as it comes to nationalism, as soon as it becomes to interacting with me, it's all off limits. We can't have that. We can't talk with them. So I'm not sure who pulled the plug on that, but I was rather disappointed. I was looking forward to having a debate on this topic. That being said, she still did submit a op-ed responding. Before we get into that, I think it's important that we understand who Ms. Brar is. Let's pull it up. So obviously you can tell from her name, she is a lot of people were saying she's Indian. Apparently she's of Pakistani descent. She actually reached out to me and said, can you tell everyone that I'm not Pakistani, that I'm actually from here? And at least she claims she's from here. I started asking questions. She got very evasive very quickly. So I'm not sure what the story is. She wouldn't give me the details of when her parents moved here or when she moved here or anything like that. But she says she's from here. We'll say she's trans Canadian, right? She identifies as Canadian. But to get an understanding of who she is, I think we can look at the organization she represents here. So it says Allies for a Strong Canada. So just like Ms. Brar, I had not heard of her, and I had not heard of Allies for for a strong Canada. I can't even remember this name. It's like the most generic name. It's completely meaningless. To get you a quick sense of what they stand for, look at this logo. It looks quite interesting, right? A maple leaf with a Star of David. So these people, they claim to stand for Canadian values. They claim to stand for Canadian values. What we stand for: individual liberty, rule of law, democracy, human rights, common sense. They say Allies for a Strong Canada unites Canadians of every background who share one belief: our freedoms and democracy and our national character are worth fighting for. So they're basically this like civic nationalist group, I guess. Like I guess they're a similar kind of pressure advocacy group, nonpartisan group. But we stand with communities targeted with hate, especially the Jewish community, which today faces threats not seen in decades. So I guess they're like some sort of CivNat group, critical of immigration, but mostly focused on Muslim immigration. I feel like we see groups like this all over the world. But like I've never heard of them. I don't think they're particularly impactful, but I guess they have more connections behind the scenes than someone like me, an actual dissident. So let's, with that in mind, with Ms. Brar's identity in mind, with her affiliations in mind, let's look at her big article. So in the context of their of her connection with these pro-Zionist, pro-Israel groups, the title is very obvious: Blood and Soil versus Post-Nationalism Misses Canada's Real Identity. Immediately trying to like associate me with Nazism, even though she tried to like make a big show about how she's not calling me names or anything. Like you start throwing around blood and soil, and it's pretty obvious what they're trying to do, what the implication there is. So this is a direct response to my "What is a Canadian" article. And you can tell right from the start, that she's just seething. Like this is the type of thing where I'd write out an article or an email or whatever, and then maybe I like take a few minutes, an hour or whatever, then go back to it, and it's like, I can't send this. This is just me crashing out. I need to have some more substance. I need to have an actual academic basis for this, or else I shouldn't send it at all. But like, look right through this. You begin with a confession of decadence. You do not understand what is a Canadian. No, this is an important question in this day and age, and if you don't think so, then you're in denial. A serious nation does not pose this question itself like a neurotic teenager in front of a bathroom mirror, she says. A people that still knows its purpose does not pause mid-stride to define itself. But that's exactly the problem that I completely agree with. We don't understand who we are anymore. If you ask people this question, they can't answer it, because they've been brainwashed for generations to believe that we don't have an identity, that it is just liberal multiculturalism, that to have any sort of actual identity, culture, history is racist and unacceptable. So I completely agree. We're not a serious nation. We are in an identity crisis. So, but just like she's going on here, like she's trying to imply that I'm some sort of neurotic teenage girl, as if I can't grapple with these things in a non-emotional way. I find it's quite funny, but like I do agree with her in a sense. Like she's trying to pretend that there's no issue, but the thing is, there is very much an issue, and it doesn't help to be in denial about it. It lives out an answer so obvious that only the bored and ruined — I'm so bored and ruined, guys — needed explained. The very fact that you must ask and think yourself profound for doing so is a symptom of decline, not a cure. And again, I agree. This is a symptom of decline. Canada is in decline. We need to have these substantive conversations in order to get Canada back on track. So a lot of this, I think, this is why I wish we could have had a debate. I think we actually would see eye to eye on a lot of things. But she's getting very, like, she's claiming that I'm the kind of emotional one when she's clearly having an issue here. And this comes back to the kind of central issue in a lot of these conversations about identity. So many people that push back on me, it's because they need to have a definition of Canadian identity that includes them or their spouse or their family. So often when you have people that are like Miss Brar needs to have a definition of Canadian identity that includes her. And since I've put forward one that centralizes around ethnicity that excludes her, she's just having this crash out, seethe about how I'm emotional and bored and ruined and all these unnecessary things when actually having a conversation of substance. And the same happens for so many of my critics. Like even to go with Polyev, like he needs to put forward this nation of immigrant stuff because his children are only half Canadian. His wife is a refugee or whatnot. He wants to have a definition of Canadian that includes his wife. And so many of my critics are like this. They all seem to have significant others who are immigrants or second generation immigrants or whatnot. So they're personally offended and need to find a definition that includes them. And I find this kind of funny because obviously, as we talked about before, like I'm not the paragon of ethnic purity. Like even I don't fit my definition of heritage Canadian fully. I only myself am half heritage Canadian. So I don't know why I'm the only one that is able to come forward and comfortably talk about these things. Everyone else seems to get so wrapped up in their own personal, but like, let's be objective about these things. Like this is Canadian history. My background doesn't change Canadian history. Your background doesn't change Canadian history. Canadian history is what it is. We live there. There is a kind of objective truth here that we can base these conversations around. Let's go back to this. Worse, even the question is wrong. She says my question is wrong. Your essay is not about what is Canadian, but who is Canadian. It is a census disguised as philosophy. The genuine question, what is a Canadian, presupposes a prior and more fundamental question, what is Canada? But again, she misses the point. Like my position is that Canada is a nation, and a nation in the direct sense of the word, not to use it as a synonym for country or state or whatnot, as it often is misused. A nation is a people, a distinct people with a unique shared history and culture. So innately, what is a Canadian? What is Canada? Who is Canada? Who is a Canadian? These are all the same thing once you accept that Canada is a nation, that Canada is a people. These questions are interchangeable. This is what she does not seem to understand. So much of this, like I do recommend people. There's 3 articles here. There's mine, and then there's Dimpy's response, and then there's another one responding to her from a friend of mine. So I do recommend people read all of this. I won't go through the whole thing because it would take forever. But so much of her article is honestly hard to read. Like her thesis is not very clear. She's so critical of my essay, but she doesn't write very effectively. She uses very verbose, unnecessarily complicated language to mask that she doesn't have really significant substance to offer. Kind of distracts from the point. And really, like I get through this whole thing and I don't really know what her answer to the question is, what is a Canadian. I don't really know what her policy priorities, what her solution to the problem is. I don't really know where she's going with it. I'll take my guess once we get towards the end, but I don't really know what she's getting at. She goes, the founder does not swing an axe. He articulates principles. Mine is the radical position, unfashionable to the left and the right. Our founders were right. Your position is merely the ethicized parody of the very leftism you claim to oppose. Blood, soil, and stock in place of identity, equity, and gender. Same rejection of principle, different totem. So she's taking the you're woke right type argument that you're the left, you're just like the left, blah, blah, blah. And like, to be honest, I don't really oppose to like I do criticize leftists, but they're not my main argument. Like I'm focused on the establishment, and I'm focused on multiculturalism, and I'm focused on mass immigration. That's what I criticize. I don't care left, right. I'm not about that divide. I'm a nationalist. I see myself operating on a completely different axis than the traditional left-right spectrum. So she invokes the founder. So who is she talking about? Is she talking about John A? Is she talking about any of these guys? John A, George Brown, George Etienne Cartier, Charles Tupper, Darcy McGee? Who do you guys think she's talking about? Weirdly enough, she's talking about Lord Durham and the Durham Report. To see this, you would have to look at our true founding. Our true founding, guys, is not when Jacques Cartier discovered Canada. It's not when Samuel de Champlain founded Quebec City. It's not when Sir John A. Macdonald established Canada at Confederation. It's not even when Pierre Trudeau repatriated the Constitution. Our true founding, according to Ms. Dimpy Brar, is the Durham Report of 1839. It's the key text, she says. Durham did not discover a harmonious heritage Canada. He found two nations warring in the bosom of a single state, French Catholic, English Protestant, a struggle not of principles but of race. We'll get back to this in the next article. Remember this line. That condition, which he regarded as intolerable, is precisely what you propose to restore. He wanted to abolish race as a political principle. You want to enthrone it. I won't touch on this now just because we'll get to it in the next article. Your derision of values like tolerance and equality simply show that you have swallowed the left's caricature of liberalism. No, it shows that I know that values alone are not enough to enforce a national identity, which is only becoming more obvious in this ethnic, multiracial society that we've created. You attack what they say liberalism is, not actually what it's for. We're the real classical liberals. You sneer at ideas as if it were hard-headed realists, but your heritage Canadian itself is an idea. It's not an idea. It's a people. It's flesh and bone. It's not just an idea like liberalism is. The moment we move from counting to justifying, from who to what and why, we are in the realm of political philosophy. This is territory you ought to dread. I don't dread political philosophy. I find it kind of boring, to be honest, but I've done my readings. I did my readings. I read, the Republic and Aristotle's Politics and all that. I've done all that. I just don't. I believe that politics is more than just philosophy. I believe it is a realm of action and men. I believe it's more than just ideas. So, is there anything else to bring up in this? Because there's some funny stuff towards the end. But basically, she invokes Lord Durham's report, which most people won't be familiar with, but it is kind of a precursor to Confederation that found two main things: that Canada needed to form our own responsible government, a semi-autonomous body within the British colony, to manage our own affairs, and two, that the English-French divide was dysfunctional, and really that the French needed to be wiped out and assimilated. And she puts this forward as the foundational text, as if this was how Canada was founded, which is quite ironic and really displays a poor understanding of Canadian history, because this report was rejected. It was rejected by the Tories in Upper Canada, who wanted to remain loyal to the Crown. It was rejected by French Canadians who didn't want to be assimilated into English Canada. It was rejected by all parties. When John A. Macdonald and the Fathers of Confederation, most majorly George Etienne Cartier, collaborated to found Canada, it was a compromise between English and French Canada in order to resist the pressures of America, in order to reject the radical liberal experiment of America. So Dimpy's trying to put forward this concept of Canada that is classically liberal and unicultural, she says, and a bastion. I've watched some of her other content, some of her interviews and stuff when I was preparing for our debate. And she's this proponent of Western civilization. And she really just seems to see Canada as a bastion of Western civilization, a bastion of liberalism. And that's just not what Canada is. Like, obviously, we are a part of Western civilization, but we have a unique identity within that society. I don't want to just become some sort of pan-Western society. I want to preserve Canada and Canadian identity. And the reality of that is we are skeptical of liberalism. We are skeptical of American influence. We're skeptical of our role within that Western American empire. And we've actively made our whole society around resisting those pressures. So to just say that, to just base this like liberal pan-Western civilization kind of concept that she has on the Durham report, which was rejected at the time, and our leaders then forged a new and unique path that would create Canada and Canadian identity, just shows that she doesn't understand the country very well. This whole article is very much that meme where it's like, let me explain your identity and how it includes me. Like, she's made this liberal pan-Western society because she thinks that's how she can fit into it. When the reality is, and like, I'm not saying that no immigrants can fit into Canadian society, but you can't come here and try and reinvent Canadian society and then that's how you fit into it. You have to accept our history and our identity and be subservient to it, not try and reinvent it to include yourself. That's completely oxymoronic. It's completely counterintuitive. That doesn't make any sense. Let's see if there's anything else to touch on in this article. And again, like, she constantly brings up the left and Islam. Like, you can so tell that her roots are very Zionist, very pro-Israel, that the real problem in the threat to Western civilization is, or our Judeo-Christian values, is Islam. I'm sure she would agree with me on remigrating a lot of Muslim immigrants, but she probably disagree with me on remigrating Indians and Pakistanis and whatnot. It does not smile indulgently as doctrines that deny natural rights. Multiculturalism is not an extension of our founding. Like, this is what I mean. Like, multiculturalism is not an extension of our founding. It is an explicit repudiation. Like, there's so many lines that she has in here that's like, I completely agree. It's I could have wrote that. Like, I might tweak that tomorrow. I'm just going to start copy and pasting, totally ripping off content from her article that I agree with, because this is a great line. I completely agree. But otherwise, there's so many things that I have to disagree with. Like, here we go. You, however, retreat to the birth and blood, but birth has never been sufficient for citizenship in a dignified regime. Citizenship is a moral and intellectual status. No, it's a legal status. Take your own heritage Canadians. You proudly quote from the 1971 polling showing that a majority opposed mass immigration and multiculturalism. Then you avert your eyes from the obvious. Pierre Trudeau was reelected 3 times afterwards by that very stock. Your beloved blood voted to abolish the principles you claim it embodies. The heritage you worship is the same majority that surrendered the country to the very post-national order you condemn. Your romance with stock collapsed the second you look at the ballot. And this is like this weird notion that these people put forward. They think that I like have to agree with everyone that's of the same stock as me, and that people are inherently right just because that they're the right race or something. And that's just not how I think about things. Like, I think that culture and ethnicity are intimately tied, and that as you transform the ethnic stock of a society, you transform the country into something else. And that there is an inherent beauty to the nation of a chain of ancestries, a family of families, descendants passing on a country to each other. If we change and adapt through that time, that's our own decision. But to be completely replaced by a new stock is absurd and radical. And to just say that, oh, well, Trudeau was reelected kind of obfuscates from the political situation. Like, you have to look at the elections that led to Trudeau being elected. Like, he was faced, like, the Conservative Party, the Progressive Conservative Party at the time, was completely lost in the woods post Diefenbaker, right? They were led by Bob Stanfield, who was this, I think he was the former premier of Nova Scotia, who was not charismatic. Like, Pierre Trudeau had a personality cult, right? He was very charismatic. He was not necessarily about his ideas and his promotion of multiculturalism and all these things. Like, there was the separatism debate happening in Quebec at the time. There was the ineffective Conservative Party kind of lost in the woods. Like, there's a lot to describe. And then, of course, the consequences of mass migration, even when they were having these more liberal notions, they never conceived of 1 million people a year coming into this country. They never, people that voted for Trudeau were not voting for Trudeau to turn Brampton 80% Indian. Like, that's not what anyone had in mind. And if they did, they wouldn't have voted for him. So to just say, yes, they were against immigration, but they were pro-immigration because they voted for Trudeau. Like, that's just not how elections work. Like, we have polling on the subject. We know people's opinions on that. Elections are much more complicated than single issues. And then again, she goes, consider the ugliest example. The white woman who votes reliably for parties and policies that dissolve our borders, invert our moral hierarchies, and despise our history. Is she more Canadian by sheer accident of birth than the man who earnestly embraces natural rights and the supremacy of the Canadian regime? Yes, she is more Canadian than the immigrant, even if I disagree with her values. She's lived here intergenerationally. That's what defines what a Canadian is. It's not just about values. Values are a component of it. They're a result of our history. They're a result of how we've learned to live in this environment. They're a result of our religious history, of all these things. But to just, like, it's such a stupid question. If you say yes, you have to openly abandon the founding in favor of tribal loyalty. That is not conservatism. It's regression. That's the most ChatGPT ass line. That is not conservatism. It is regression. This is why I suggested that she was using AI to write her stuff. But it's not. This is nationalism. Like, to recognize that Canada is a nation, that we have an ancestral lineage. It's not. And I'm not a conservative. Like, I keep saying this. I'm a nationalist. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I'm a nationalist. It's that simple. Our founders did not believe in multiculturalism. They believed in a uniculture rooted in principle. Like, this is just not true. This is what I was saying about the Durham Report and stuff. We were never a uniculture. We were a proud bicultural society, a compromise between English and French, in resistance of American expansion and liberalism. We weren't this liberal uniculture like she's putting forward. Statecraft is soulcraft. Like, it's all these lines that it's like, this is so ChatGPT. This is another baseline. Multiculturalism was not an evolution. It was a revolution against the founding, a descent into nihilism in which no way of life may be judged by a higher standard, only by its power. Mic drop from Dimpy. That's a good one. Like, she has so many good lines in here where we agree, and then she just, like, draws the most retarded conclusions. It's really like a snap back and forth. It's a jarring ride. The Islamists, the gender commissars, the race theorists, or each assert its own supremacy. None contends a standard above itself. That condition is not peace. It is pre-political war. Like, there, another ChatGPT ass line. It's not peace. It's pre-political war. The very war of races and sex that Durham believed our liberal founding was meant to overcome. It's just ahistoric. And then she accuses me of putting forward a racial hierarchy, which is, again, not what I do. It's not about one race being better than the other. It's about Canada having a common ethnic stock. And it's not saying that Canadians should have more rights than immigrants. It's not saying that everyone who's not a heritage Canadian needs to be deported. That's not what we advance. But we do need to, after generations of post-nationalism and being dishonest about Canada's identity, we do need to be very clear, and we need to, in this society that's become, where demographic change is driving all the major problems in our society, we need to get comfortable about having conversations that have ethnicity as a component, which has been kind of forbidden throughout my life, at least, and probably beyond that. But we need to kind of get over that we need to slay that sacred cow and have more honest conversations. So that's a summary of her piece. You can go and read it if you want it in its totality. I will say that as I was saying before, I don't really know what she's proposing. She's just kind of seething about my essay. She doesn't seem to have a significant proposal of her own. If I'm reading between the lines, what I kind of take away is that she is promoting a sort of Singaporean style model where we need to have kind of an authoritarian state to impose liberalism on a multi-ethnic population. I think that's a very un-Canadian mindset. I think that's a very Asian mindset to how to approach this situation. And to use the Durham report as the foundation of Canadian society, it just demonstrates a very poor understanding of our history, because it was rejected then, it should be rejected now. What we need to do is understand our bicultural roots, understand the ethnogenesis, understand Canadian identity, understand ethnocultural identity. We need to understand all of these components, and really, if we want to preserve Canadian society, which is in many ways liberal, like Western society, our roots back to England and France. Like there is a streak of liberalism within that, but we always have had a sort of ordered liberty where there is reasonable limitations to that. So to just propose this very like liberal statist kind of solution, this imposition of a uniculture that's never been, is just very anti-Canadian. I decided I thought it wouldn't be best for me to respond to this, because I think the most offensive part of this is that she doesn't seem to understand the French fact in Canada, which is really a huge part of Canadian identity and what makes us unique and what makes us not America. That's negotiation with the French. So I reached out to my friend Jean-Philippe Warren to write a response from a more Quebecois perspective, given that the central foundation of her piece was this Durham report, which is just very anti-Quebec. So again, I would recommend checking this out as well. I'll throw this up. Warren, Canada's real origin story, two nations, one reluctant deal. This is a great piece. It's a bit shorter, and it goes over the history of the situation. It breaks down the history of the Durham report and Canadian history, the negotiation between Fontaine and Baldwin, the two leaders who managed one of our earliest responsible governments. I do want to touch on some of the best lines. I need a drink. I'm getting dry. Yeah, exactly. So he explains that the Durham report sought to assimilate French Canada into English Canada, that it wasn't received well, and the whole history behind it. Here, I mentioned we'd come back to this line. So in response to this conflict, he recommended two major measures: the union of Upper and Lower Canada and the introduction of the responsible government, a system of government central to the Westminster model, in which the executive is accountable to an elected legislature and must retain its confidence to remain in office. By gradually placing French Canadians, a people with no history and no literature, according to Lord Durham, as he wrote, in a position of political and demographic minority. He hoped they would assimilate into Anglo-Canadian society. Lord Durham did not seek to abolish race as a political principle. Rather, he aimed to erase one of the founding peoples of Canada as a distinct political force. The British government adopted the Union, but refused at first to implement the responsible government. So again, like Dimpy is quoting the Durham report as if he wants to abolish race as a principle, but that's literally a misreading of the text and of the history. They recognized race; they just saw it as a problem that needed to be expunged through assimilation. The end of this article is just beautiful. So this kind of rebukes Brar's thesis very clearly. The foundation of Canada was not laid in the Durham Report, nor in the abstract liberal theories Brar suggests. It was built through pragmatic, conservative compromises rooted in reality of its two founding peoples, French and British, and the pre-Confederation provinces. LaFontaine and Baldwin demonstrated that French Canadians could survive by working with British institutions. Later, Macdonald and Cartier showed that the lasting stability required alliances that recognized both nations and provinces, ensuring the political power and responsibility were shared between them. From the co-leadership of the province to the federal structures of confederation, the Canadian project has always been conservative at its core, cautious of radical change, and firmly opposed to liberal, majoritarian, expansionist model of the United States. Its goal was not to erase one people for the sake of another, but to protect and preserve the founding nations while maintaining a practical balance between the provinces. In short, Canada's true foundation lies in negotiation, compromise, and survival of its founding people and provinces alike. It's a country built not on ideology alone, but a pragmatic statecraft that safeguarded nationhood, particularly in the eyes of French Canadian nation, and aimed to ensure a stable federation. This pact between nations and provinces has faded over the decades, but it should remain at the heart of Canadian identity, a compromise that valued order, continuity, and preservation of its founding people above all. It was an erosion of this pact that gave rise to French Canadian resentment, to Quebec's desire for independence, but that is another discussion. So just a beautiful piece there by Ward, a much more intellectually honest, historically accurate piece that shows Canada's unique identity, that compromise between those nations. You can even include the First Nations in that as well, but mainly the English and the French. That our founding thrust was to preserve our nations, to preserve our unique culture in the face of liberalism, in the face of Americanism, not some sort of pan-Western identity, that uniculture that Brar is putting forward. So I thought that was interesting to see both the back and forth there. While I disagree with Brar, with Dimpy completely, or not completely, obviously, there was a few good lines that I think we agree with, but I disagree with the thrust of her argument. I do appreciate that she chose to engage. These are great opportunities for us. I appreciate the Western Standard publishing this. And even though I disagree with Dimpy on a lot, I appreciate them publishing her response and facilitating that debate. I think these are very important discussions to have, and a big up to Derek Fildebrand and the Western Standard for facilitating those discussions. But this is the real result. Like, people can come to argue with us, and the people that whisper behind the scenes try and say, oh, they're going to be mean to you, they're going to be racist. And yes, there might be some anons that post that meme of the let me explain your culture and how it includes me type thing. There might be some harsh words from anons on the internet. That's the internet. Get used to it. But really, the risk of interacting with us is you're going to lose every debate, because you don't understand Canadian society, you don't understand Canadian nationalism, and you don't understand the solutions to 2026 Canada. So that's the op-ed wars. That's what I wanted to cover. I hope that wasn't boring. I hope I'm not just crashing out over these things. I thought it was an interesting and fruitful debate, and I would encourage everyone to read those op-eds in their fullness. Now, what else did I want to talk about? Where should we start? So we won't stick on this one for too long. I do want to touch on this very briefly. I want to talk a bit about the World Cup. So, to be honest, people might give me a hard time for this. But I am a bit of a sports ball fan, guys. I'm a lifelong soccer fan. I've been playing soccer since I was young. All my first jobs were in soccer, working as a soccer coach for my volunteer hours in high school, working at soccer camps, working as a referee, playing competitively. I was the captain of my high school soccer team, all that fun stuff. And I am looking forward to the World Cup, but I'm a fan of the Canadian soccer team. It's probably my hobby that's least consistent with my worldview, with my political view. But I do think that the upcoming World Cup is going to be a big opportunity for us to mainstream difficult conversations on national identity and ethnicity. So there was a post here that went viral today. Here we go. It's so small. There we go. So it's not happening. It's just a conspiracy theory. And this is the 1984 Canadian team, the last time we made it to the World Cup. And this is the 2025 team. So this is just their, a snapshot of the great replacement, the radical change that we've seen over the last 40 years. And then this guy retweets it. We finally made the World Cup consecutively, and this is what we complain about. And I can't help but respond. Hard to be proud of this accomplishment when there are so few actual Canadians on this team. And we didn't even qualify. We qualified automatically because we were hosting the World Cup. So this, I got a lot of hate for this. I got a lot of people seething at me in the replies, calling me racist, all this stuff, as you would expect. But this is like this is the reality of the situation. Like I think Canadians would be a lot more excited about this team if there were actual Canadian representatives on this team. And while like I do find it entertaining to watch this team, I think like FIFA in national soccer rules are just dysfunctional. Like even beyond mass immigration, like they just allow people to play for countries if their grandparents had citizenship. Like it's just way too loose, and it's enabled, like it's basically that national soccer teams have become basically club teams nowadays, and it does take away the point of a national competition. Like I want to see different nations, peoples competing against each other. I think there's a lot more beauty in that, having people that are different heights and sizes and so on, with different cultures and different styles of play. Now it's all globalized. It's all a bunch of Africans playing against each other, representing different countries. But as Canada hosts the World Cup this year, it kind of forces conversations about nationalism and identity into the mainstream, right? You have countries competing with each other. It's inherently a clash of nationalities, and particularly in Canada, usually when it's a World Cup, people kind of support, they support random countries that they might be fans of. Often they end up supporting, countries that are in line with their ancestors, their ethnic heritage. You have the Italians and Vaughan and stuff supporting the Italian team and so on. But now that Canada's in the World Cup, there's this kind of central question. It's like, are you going to support Canada, or are you going to support Italy or whatever? And it kind of pushes these conversations about ethnicity. All of a sudden, you'd have this Italian Canadian multi-generation immigrant or whatnot, and people are saying, well, you're Italian. Now these conversations where most of the time people would be like, oh, you can't question someone's Canadianness based off of their immigration, their relatives, so on. All of a sudden, people are very accepting of being Italian or whatnot. I keep using Italians as an example, but it's any teams from around the world. It can be African teams, it could be European teams or whatnot. So it just forces these conversations about identity and heritage and all these things into the mainstream zeitgeist. So I do think this is going to be a big opportunity for nationalist accounts to start getting more active into these conversations and pushing the zeitgeist. So I'll be preparing. If I don't get disavowed by Canada Soccer during the World Cup, it'll be a failure. But we're going to have important conversations about heritage and identity during the World Cup. So do watch out for that. Yeah, just a little side topic there based off of people giving me shit on Twitter today. And the last thing I want to touch on after this, we'll open up the floor and I'll take some questions for 15-20 minutes or something. This stream's already going really long. But I do got to talk about the kind of controversy. This is I don't know if it's just my feed, but this might just be my feed. This might be everyone's feed. I'm not sure, but a big topic of discussion in the last 24 hours has been Harry Potter. The new HBO series released their first teaser trailer for this new Harry Potter series that's coming up, and my whole feed is people debating, color grading and all these things. And to be honest, I have to say I am a big Harry Potter fan. Again, you guys might find me cringe, you might find me unk or whatever. I am a zillennial. I grew up with the Harry Potter books. I've loved them my whole life. I've seen the movies and read the books countless times. So it is a hobby of mine, and I do think I'm pretty well informed on the series. But I think the biggest point of controversy has been the casting of Severus Snape. So all of you will be familiar with Alan Rickman's performance and of but here we go. Here's Severus Snape. Obviously, they did the race swapped Severus Snape. Black Snape has been a central point of controversy recently, and I thought this would be a fun jumping off point to talk a bit about Harry Potter, because they can't help but insert, like, they just had to, because the reality is there is like racial black characters in Harry Potter, and like it is a story set in 1990s 1980s Britain, which was a white majority country. It was 90% white in 1980. The vast majority of the characters should be white if we're being honest about history and society. And like there are characters, Dean Thomas, Lee Jordan, Angelina Johnson, there are many black characters in Harry Potter, but they've had to insert a racialized character into the more main cast. And they decided to do so with Severus Snape, which is just so silly, because I mean, not only is Snape's appearance very frequently mentioned by the author, by J.K. Rowling, as very pasty, sallow, hooked nose, all these characteristics that long, greasy, straight hair, all characteristics that this person, regardless of his race, just doesn't have. He doesn't have the hooked nose. He doesn't have the sallow skin. He doesn't have the long, greasy hair. He has dreads. Snape with dreads. It's ridiculous. And really, if you were going to race swap any character, I think Snape is actually one of the worst choices, because like it does warp his story. If you're familiar, and maybe I'm getting too in the weeds here. I hope you guys enjoy Harry Potter or are familiar with Harry Potter. But like Snape's whole story is, I mean, he gets bullied by the Marauders, Harry's father and his friend group. He pines for Harry's mother, Lily Evans. And by race swapping him, like you introduce this whole new narrative, which makes it more about race. Like he's all of a sudden he's getting like Harry is distrustful of his one black teacher who he thinks is an evil criminal. All of a sudden the Marauders are bullying the black kid and holding him upside down. Like it's almost like he's being lynched. All of a sudden this black kid like Snape is basically an incel, right? Like he's pining for this white woman, and when she rejects him, he becomes a wizard supremacist. Like it just warps the whole story around Snape's racial identity, which really just transforms the narrative of the story, which is unfortunate. And if we're being honest, like Harry Potter is an interesting allegory, but it like the wizarding muggle divide is more about class and aristocracy than it is about race. It's not really an allegory for race. And the overall story is really a battle between, it is really an allegory for liberalism versus nationalism, right? Like Voldemort and the dark side are literally, you know, pure blood. Like they believe in the continuity of wizards. They believe in, like, they are basically nationalists, wizard nationalists. And Dumbledore and the good side are these kind of radical, liberal, multicultural folks who believe in extending more rights to house elves and other species, and include extending and accepting muggles borns and half-bloods and all these things. Like it really is and it really is a meta-political struggle between a liberal influencer, Dumbledore, and a nationalist influencer, Voldemort, struggling outside of the government, where they both pressure the government to come to their ways. The whole thing is an allegory for liberalism and nationalism. And there are allegories for races. Like the thing is, like, you know, your typical normie liberal might not like it, but like the allegories in Harry Potter for the different races are different species, right? You have the goblins, you have the house elves, you have the giants, you even have the werewolves. Like these are actually the different racial comparisons, right? And you have characters like Umbridge who don't believe in extending rights to, you know, half breeds like giants and so on, and they're critical of that. So like you do already have these racial components or these racial allegories. It's just not spelled out for you. It's just not directly about skin color and stuff like this. But the allegories there have always existed, right? Hermione has this whole SJW arc where she's trying to extend rights to house elves and get them paid and make sure they're not slaves and stuff. Like there are these progressive narratives through Harry Potter. You don't need to transform and insert these race swaps to have them. They're already there. Lupin and the werewolves, like this is all an allegory for homosexuality and the AIDS epidemic at the time. Like he's literally turned into a werewolf by a predator who targets children to try and to convert them into his way of life. Like all of these progressive notions about homosexuality and about race, about class, all of them already exist within Harry Potter, and it's really disappointing that they're changing the story and they're going to add these new narratives and distract and just kind of hit you over the head with things when they already have these kind of nuanced narratives existing throughout the story. So I'm disappointed to see this. I am looking forward to it. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. I'm going to watch the shows. But I am rather disappointed to see them, especially this change with Snape. Like I really don't mind the Hermione change quite as much as the Snape one. I don't think that changes the story quite as much. But again, now you're going to have Malfoy calling her a mudblood, and instead of this being about liberalism, nationalism, this kind of divide, it's just going to be about race again, and it's just it transforms the story in unnecessary ways. I'm disappointed to see it. So that's my rant about Harry Potter. I don't know if it's weird to go into that stuff. I know it's I know it's not my normal content on immigration. But I do think like this is where the mainstream zeitgeist is, right? It's about it is talking about this show. And I do think it's good to have these conversations about Harry Potter, because it does introduce maybe a more normie audience to these concepts. And I don't know if you guys would be interested in going into that more. I could do a whole series on just Harry Potter, and breaking down these allegories about nationalism and all the different details that you find throughout the book, natural hierarchies, egalitarianism. Like it, I really do think Harry Potter was so popular, not because it was a beautiful fantasy world. I mean, maybe many people are critical of J.K. Rowling and her magic system, which is relatively incoherent, and there's many plot holes in the series and stuff like this. I really think it was most popular because it was a potent allegory for the conquering of liberalism above nationalism in the post-war period, uh, released right as kind of liberalism was peaking before it started to collapse, like we're living through now. So I really think that's what, whether people realize it or not, I really think that's why it was so popular, because it kind of normalized this liberal mythology into a more mythological setting. So I like Harry Potter, but I read it very differently than most people do. With all that out of the way, please start dropping your questions in the chat. We can talk about Harry Potter. We can talk about immigration, whatever you guys want to talk about. I'll take some time to answer your questions, and then I have another rant I'll end the show with. I have a lot to say today, guys. Maybe I should start doing this more than once a week. Okay. Did you get a different pin? Yeah, I forgot my normal pins. I moved them out of the way. I'm trying different. You guys can't see this behind the scenes, but I move around my monitors between every episode. So I usually have a bunch of pins right here on my desk, so I can just throw them on, but I forgot it. So I have to wear my Long Live Canada pin. Everything's backwards because we're on stream. But yeah, it says Long Live Canada, which is appropriate. It's the show name, right? Sorry, I'm catching up on your comments. I wanted to see what you guys are saying about Harry Potter. I want to see if everyone's just calling me cringe for speaking about Harry Potter for 20 minutes or whatever. Daniel, will you enable super chats for these streams? I have to look into it. I haven't had time. I don't know if there's restrictions, like if I need a certain number of followers or anything to enable those. I'll look into that. I wouldn't mind, making some extra money off of these streams. And then you guys can interact in another way. Diary is blowing my mind right now. Thank you. Okay, as long as one person enjoyed it, then it was worth it. Then it was worth it. Daniel, would you do debates against Albertan separatists like Harrison Faulkner, hosted with Jason Kenney? I would like to do debates, but I would much prefer to stay focused on remigration and Canadian nationalism. I don't really want to be dragged into that separatism debate. Personally, I'm a nationalist. I believe in the whole country, but like my pitch to separatists is that these referendums are going to fail, and in large part because of the ethnic vote, just like Jacques Parizeau said about the last Quebec referendum. So even if you want separation, we need remigration first. So I much prefer to win over separatists to our cause. I want to stay focused on remigration, not getting into debates about economics and all that. And separatism and all these other topics. Let's stay focused on remigration. Let's stay focused on Canadian identity. We have more than enough. We have our work cut out for us, kind of explaining these topics without getting distracted. Also, are you Hegelian? I don't like labels. I'm a nationalist. That's the only label I'm interested in. I'm a collector of flags. Where can I get the Domsock flag? We got the Domsock flag here. I need to get some flagpoles so you guys can see it better. But you can find it on our website, shop.dominionsociety.ca. We're relaunching a bunch of merch soon, but that you can still get flags. You can still get the Domsock flag. I have a question for you. What should I look into? What should I look into on Pierre Poilievre? What do you think of him? I've only recently seen the clips on your channel. I don't like Pierre. I don't really like any current politicians. Like Pierre spends much too much time pandering to immigrants instead of putting our foot down for Canadian identity. He doesn't offer the significant enough reforms that we need. He doesn't even want to stop mass immigration, let alone do what's necessary and reverse it. So I really want to see more from Pierre Poilievre before I give him any sort of support. Do you feel like the Liberals are destroying Canada? I feel like it does not matter how much we struggle as Canadians. They still send millions of dollars elsewhere, and it does not feel like the Liberal government cares. Yeah, no, the Liberal government, I think the whole political establishment has been ruining Canada for a long time. There's a consensus on all these issues, funneling money out of Canada, promoting mass immigration, undermining our identity, promoting multiculturalism. All these things are cross-party consensus. So like the Liberals are a problem for sure, but the Conservatives are just as much of a problem. And honestly, I've seen the Liberals change more since Mark Carney took over than I've seen the Conservatives change over the same period. So I expect more dramatic change from the Conservatives just because they can. They're not in government. They should be able to dramatically shift to adjust to changing sentiment. But it does seem that the Liberals have been more in tune with that. I don't like either of them, though. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Brampton. Loved the Harry Potter rant. Yay. Mr. Tyree, what do you think about red Tories, progressive conservatives? I think the term red Tory is constantly misused and it's criminal, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves. People often use, in the modern sense, red Tories have come to mean conservatives that are progressive. So people that have like conservative or fiscally conservative, socially progressive, but that's not actually what red Tories were historically. It was actually very much the opposite. That's more of a blue liberal. A red Tory are more big government conservatives, and honestly, like I consider myself more of a red Tory, at least in a classic sense. Question. It's a refresher to see you guys as authentic nationalist movements. So would you promote Canadian culture, architecture, cuisine, festivals through media and events? I'd love to do that. We haven't got much time yet to travel around and show off the country, but I do want to start doing that more and showing off. I think this is a great idea and exactly what we should do. And I think this will help us to not only advance the conversation in nationalist circles, but also appeal to more regular Canadians who maybe haven't seen this and don't really understand our culture. So I think that's a great suggestion and something that we'd like to do. Right now, I'm really busy on building the kind of foundation of the organization. But I do want to be able to take our content to the next level. Doing stuff like this is a great idea. Any chance on a Domsock Velcro patch? I think this will. Yes, it's something that we're working on. I don't handle the merch directly. That's my colleague, my base colleague Ken. He does all that. I know he's working on a Domsock patch. I can't remember if it's an iron-on one or a Velcro on one, but I believe we'll have a Domsock patch at the next merch drop. Daniel, what's your preferred source of caffeine? I am a black coffee guy. I don't do anything else. Only black coffee. I don't like those energy drinks or anything like that. I like to keep it simple. Simple diet. Lots of water. I'm in a cut right now. We're cutting for summer, so we're summer ready. I did a bulk over the winter. Now we're cutting down, so it's only black coffee. I don't know if I have a favorite provincial flag. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of interesting ones. I am actually a fan of Alberta's. Um, I like a few of them out east as well. Nova Scotia's got a good one. I don't know if I have a favorite though. Do you enjoy triggering civic nationalist libtards? Of course, of course. It's a big hobby of mine. Do you think far right parties like Restore Britain is realistic in Canada, or will another one go the way of the PPC? And will infiltrating, influencing conservative parties ever be feasible? This is a great question. So I think Restore Britain is a very important movement that's going to have ripple effects across the Anglosphere, across Europe, across the world. I'm very hopeful for their success. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't predict the future. They seem to be growing very fast. I hope they're able to succeed, even if it's just getting a foothold in Parliament, so that they can expand on. Honestly, I think a good result could be getting a few seats, blocking reform. As the situation gets worse, they'll continue to ascend, and then maybe they can form government in the next election. I think that's a realistic, good scenario. If they can form government right off the bat, that would be incredible. But the better that they can succeed, the more it sets precedent for something like that coming here. I think the PPC's failure is a few things. It was very poorly organized behind the scenes. A big leadership problem, but also the vision of the party was out of sync with Canadian identity. It was very libertarian in character, and as we've already talked about, Canada is very much a rejection of liberalism. So to have this kind of American style culture war, libertarian philosophy party that was led by a Quebecer that had a very English base, like it just didn't work. So I wouldn't say that the PPC proves that a dissident nationalist party can't succeed. I think it proves that a libertarian party can only grow so much, even if it has good stances on immigration. A new party will have to be more in tune with Canadian identity, Canadian political culture, and these things. Our goal is not so much on infiltration right now. It's about shifting culture, right? The reality is things need to be normalized in the broader culture before political parties start adopting them. So we want to normalize conversations of identity, pushback against immigration, the concept of remigration. No party is going to adopt remigration until Canadians know what it is and then want it. That's when the change will start. So we want to create our strategy is meta-political. We want to advance conversations, normalize ideas, and as they become popular, politicians will inevitably adopt them. Infiltration is just one of our many strategies, so we can have our guys on the inside in order to capitalize once the culture, once the milieu changes, and there's an opportunity. But as well, we're building a sort of shadow political party. We're building an organization across the country. We're building an organization across the country. We're training people in political activism. We're getting people installed in political parties. We're getting people installed at the local level in municipal councils and all these things. I think there's going to be a big opportunity after the next election, after the Conservatives fail again. There's going to be a lot of people looking for after some of these separation referendums fail. There's going to be a lot of people looking for solutions, and I think that's going to be our chance to either hijack a political party or launch our own. So, great question. Coffee. You guys are funny. Do you believe Americans are their own white ethnicity? It's more. I don't know the ethnography as well in America as I do in Canada, but as I understand it, they had very different waves of migration, and they have a lot more varied uh, ethnic groups. Even though they're all largely white ethnic groups, there's a lot more Germans, there's a lot more Scandies and stuff like that. In Canada, it is much more narrow, and it is much more British and French. Do you have news on Dominion Society remigration white papers? I don't really have an update since we talked about it last week. It is something we're working on. It's kind of our first one is in its final stages. We have started on 2 other ones. I'm hoping to be able to release it sometime in April, but there hasn't been significant movement. We're in the editing and final formatting phase. Keep in mind, this is all volunteers doing this behind the scenes. We don't have a team working at it full time every day, or else we'd be churning this stuff out, right? It's people working at it in their spare time, while I try and keep everything coordinated. Well, one day we have a social conservative right-wing political party named the Reclaim Party. I kind of like the idea of a Dominion Party, or maybe a Loyalist Party. That's probably what I would go with. Thanks, Daniel. That cleared up a lot. I've been on the fence about DomSock, TBH, but your streams are sensible and have definitely swayed me towards becoming a member. That's great. I do encourage everyone to sign up as a member. You can head over to our website, dominionsociety.ca/join. It's right there at the top of our webpage. You sign up as a member, you get access, you get a nice pin. I don't have one. Oh, wait. Oh. This one's broken, but you get a nice pin. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. You get a nice membership card. And you get access to all sorts of things, but most importantly, you can get involved as a volunteer at the local level or help out with one of our specialized teams, research, propaganda, and so on. You can be a part of the movement to take this country back. We have to grow, right? We have about 2,500 members now. We need to get that up to like 2 million over the next few years. So we have a long way to go. But if we can coordinate about 3% of the population, we can take over the country. That's just numbers. What do you think of the Canada First movement? I am not a fan of them. I am not a fan. I think they're very disorganized. I think they're very social media centric. And I don't think they really understand Canadian identity either. Any affiliation with the Dominion Review? No, I'm a fan of Riley Donovan's work, but we're not associated or anything. Loyalist Party sounds great. Great. I'm glad you agree. I think it would be great. It would be like we're the loyalists. So that means everyone else is traitors, right? It kind of introduces a good dichotomy. Is there any way I can get connected with Dominion Society people in my own city? Yes. If you're not a member, you have to become a member. That's the first step. Once you're a member, you can expect to receive a phone call from one of our organizers. They'll put you through our onboarding process. We sort people into volunteer teams. We make sure everyone signs the necessary confidentiality and privacy agreements to protect everyone's identity and privacy before we put in touch with anyone in the local areas. But we do have local chapters that are being formed. We have kind of teams. We have operations running really well in like Niagara, Hamilton, pretty much all across Alberta, but majorly in Calgary and Edmonton. In Victoria, that's going to be expanding to Vancouver Island, in Halifax. So we have very active teams all over the place. And I have a bunch of calls actually tomorrow. If you're on our email list, you would have got a big update from me yesterday that ran you through all the major updates. So if you want updates on the organization and you want my hot takes in your inbox, do sign up for our email list, even if you're not becoming a member. But I do have calls set up tomorrow to start getting things onboarded in kind of the lower mainland in BC, in the Vancouver area, and in Saskatchewan, I think. So hopefully we can get the ball rolling in some other areas over the next week or two. Joined recently. The pin is very nice. The pin is very nice. It's elite. You need to have one. I sense desperation. I'm not desperate. I'm having a great time. Yeah. Oh, that's. I also should have mentioned that we are very backlogged. Please do not expect a call immediately. Even in even in some of the areas that I mentioned, it will take at least a week. And we currently have over 1,000 calls to catch up on. So please be patient. If you're a member, we will get to you, but it will take some time. Keep in mind, we are a very small team. We're a volunteer operation. We don't have a headquarters with 10 guys, 100 guys working full time, right? Like it's me, it's Ken, it's Greg, and it's a growing team of volunteers across the country. So please be patient. We will reach out. How can we make remigration a reality? The first step is like our approach is metapolitical. We do this by normalizing a set of ideas, remigration. It's never going to be implemented. It's never going to be embraced by politicians. A new party is not going to succeed if no one's ever heard of remigration, if no one knows what the word means. So the first step is to normalize these ideas. We do this through 4 main channels. We do this through media content. We do this through grassroots activism. We do this through intellectual development, and we do this through institutional infiltration. So this is our strategy to bring remigration into the mainstream in Canada in a professional, incredible fashion. It's not going to be done overnight. It's going to take time. I haven't done it. I'm very focused on remigration, but off the top of my head, stuff like pronatalism planks, developing our military, economic nationalist trade policy, stuff like that. We need to bring back our manufacturing, push back on globalization, common sense issues on and transforming our how we manage resources in this country. And I think even constitutional amendments or repealing the charter and replacing it with a new constitutional vision of this country would be all kind of things to consider. Very much enjoying these streams. Any duo streams playing with Greg? Not at the moment. I've been enjoying doing them solo. You don't like the you miss Greg? We can bring him back. We don't have any planned events in the Okanagan area of BC. We're still not very organized out there yet. I hope to do some sort of tour around the country a bit later this year, but we don't have anything lined up right now. It's great to see the Dominion Society becoming the premier nationalist organization in Canadian Patriots. Thank you. I agree. That was our goal, and we're just getting started. Tyler Russell could have become more popular if he had stayed around after 2021. Yeah, if he didn't run away to America and abandon us. Thoughts on Second Sons Canada? I don't have a strong opinion. I'm happy to see Canadian nationalists getting organized, regardless of the organization they're in. Physical fitness is good, but I don't have any affiliation with the Sons. Good. Wear your pin everywhere. Don't be like me and forget it on your other jacket. Don't be like me. Remember to wear your pin. Will you ever bring Ken on the show? Yeah, we might bring Ken on sometime. Ken is a bit more of a behind the scenes guy, but you see him in some of our content and stuff. He's a big organizer, a mucker and a grinder. But I'm the guy that likes to talk and hear his own voice. Daniel, do you recommend a book to read for curious nationalists who want to be better educated? Yes, I have a whole reading list. A lot of you reached out to me since our last show and asked for it. You can just send me an email at info@dominionsociety.ca and I'll send you my reading list. I have a good 5 or 6 books. They're not all in Canadian nationalism. Some of them are more on like right-wing illiberal thought. It's like 6 books that I think are really helpful to kind of understand the political situation. Some are about Canada, some are about kind of political philosophy. But I think they're a good combo. They're books that I've read over the last few years that I thought were really helpful. Is there a link I could grab so I can print off and post some flyers? No. We print all of our materials centrally to get the best cost and to ensure quality and consistency in our branding. We don't want people just like doing printer paper stuff that looks really bad. We only provide print materials to Dominion Society members who have been onboarded as volunteers and signed all the necessary agreements to weed out any sort of infiltrators or people who might try and make us look bad. So if you want to get involved, putting up flyers, putting up posters, doing all that, you need to sign up as a member. Excellent. We have a good little team in Victoria that's growing quite well. I think we have a lot of potential in Victoria, and those guys are going to start spreading the message across Vancouver Island very soon. I plan to connect with them tomorrow, actually, and kind of scale up our onboarding operations on Vancouver Island. What are your religious beliefs, Daniel? I was raised very secular. I was born to 2 Catholic parents who kind of left the faith, and they raised us very secularly. Religion's never been a big focus of mine, to be honest. I don't consider myself much of a theologian or anything like that. That being said, I have been kind of dipping my toes into Christianity and Catholicism lately. I've been going to a local church in my area very regularly, and I have a few friends that are very involved there that have been kind of encouraging me, and I've been really enjoying that. It provides a sense of foundation and community in my life, a connection to what's past, and I think that's of great value. I think it's a beautiful service. And it's nice to see the same people every week. It's nice to have that kind of rooting both in your community locally, but also into your history. So I'm on my own journey. I won't call myself a Christian. I'm not baptized. I'm not really a part of the faith, but I'm exploring. I'll be wearing my pin in Portugal in May. This guy's going to Remsum. I'll be there as well. So maybe we'll see each other. We should take pictures together. I'll be there. I think I'll be speaking, actually. Thoughts on upcoming Canadian nationalist creators like Max Jennis and Joseph Board? I like to see more people in the space doing their own thing. I might not agree with everything everyone says, but we need more voices. This is metapolitics in actions, right? We need to have a thriving counter-narrative space, and the major media groups are not really doing that great. Western Standard's been doing some good stuff. Juno's been doing some good stuff. I think Rebel's a big problem, to be honest. So it's great to see new creators kind of getting the word out there in different ways. Okay, it looks like that's about the end of the questions. I'm gonna do. I have one last rant, and then we'll wrap things up for tonight. Oh, what's the issue with Rebel? I think they take up a lot of market share in the both like the attention marketplace and the and like the financial support, and I don't think they do much with it. I don't think they advance the problem. I think they carry a lot of water for the CPC. I think they post a lot of outrage bait and slop. I think they could do a lot more. They were the kind of first movers, and they have this huge advantage over the rest of the media ecosystem. But I don't think they actually like push forward the conversation. They won't even platform nationalists like me. I think it's all very suspect, very disappointing. Okay, I'm gonna stop taking questions now. Do one last rant. It's been 2 hours, guys. This is way too long of a stream. I'm sorry for taking up all your time. I hope you guys have been enjoying me babble about stuff. And I'm getting hungry, man. I haven't had dinner yet. But my what I want to leave you with tonight is aesthetics matter. I think there are too many, especially men out there, who discount the importance of things like physical appearance. And this is going to sound superficial, but the reality is aesthetics matter, that your appearance is a part of how you communicate and how you project yourself. And you need to take it seriously, or else you're not playing the game of life completely. This means carrying yourself with confidence, having good posture. This means getting in shape, eating right, exercising. This means learning how to dress properly. And I think a lot of people think a lot of these things are kind of effeminate, gay, whatnot. And like I was very much like that for the longest time. Maybe I'll expose myself. Maybe I'll not expose myself like that, but maybe I'll expose that, because like for the longest time I was just like that. I didn't feel it was necessary to exercise. I ate like shit. I was self-conscious about the way I dressed, and I thought that caring about that stuff was unnecessary. I just wore hoodies and sweatpants and track pants and all that stuff. I was fat, especially when I worked for the PPC. I felt I was so busy. And oh, how do I not dox people? And double checking the docs. Does that work? Wow. Yeah, exactly. I thought I was too busy. How do I do this? Okay. I thought I was too busy. I didn't want to work out. I was lazy. I was skinny fat. I wore hoodies all the time. And like I don't know, I thought I was too good for these things. And the reality is it affects how people think about you. People don't take you seriously. Sorry, I'm going to expose myself here. Like this is me a few years ago. I was fat. I wore these stupid glasses. I thought they made me look cool or smart or something. Like this is me. This is me when I worked for the PPC. I always wore track pants, and I got big. I didn't want to work out, and I started to realize that it undermined my very identity. People wouldn't take me as seriously. Like aesthetics just like it's much like politics. You can not care about politics, but politics cares about you. It's the same thing. You might not care about aesthetics, but people care about aesthetics. So you can't run from this. You have to embrace it. The reality is we are not good enough, right? You have to you have to strip down the ego and accept we're not good enough. As nationalists, as a movement, as individuals, we're not good enough, or else this country wouldn't be such a mess. And as such, we have to become better. We have to become the best versions of ourselves. We need to get stronger. We need to get smarter. We need to get more beautiful. We need to get richer. We need to get more influential. We need to get more well known, more respected. And the easiest thing that you can do is control your life. Start reading on a daily basis, even if it's just 10 pages a day. Like, just start reading. Start working out. Like, for the longest time, like especially like after high school, for the first few years of my career, I did not work out. I only started in the last few years. And if you take, I won't lie to you, it's not easy. Like, it's not easy to transform your physique. You have to learn how to eat properly. You have to learn how to work out properly. And working out itself is a struggle, but that's a part of the experience. Like, we have to get used to adversity. We have to get accustomed to struggling. We have to enjoy that challenge. And exercising is a perfect gateway to get more accustomed to that way of life. Like, I over the last few years, I've completely recomped my body. Like, you can see, like, we got the Chad fucking jawline going on. And it's because I started taking things very seriously, and it completely transforms the way that you start running your life. It gives you more energy, it gives you more confidence, it fixes your hormones. Everything else is downstream from that. Like, you need to start incorporating physical activity. I'm happy to give some more advice, but I like to think of myself as an example of how it's possible, because that's just me a year or two ago. I look very different. I dress very differently. Like, you have to get over these self-conscious notions that working out is too difficult, or knowing how to dress, getting clothes that fit, getting out of your comfort hoodie and your sweatpants to wear a suit or just a nice shirt is something that's gay or effeminate or anything like that. Like, this is all nonsense. You need to accept that the way you look is the way you are perceived. Even if you're smart and you have all the right arguments, if you're fat or skinny fat or whatever, people aren't going to take you as seriously as if you're the best version of yourself. So the nation is the people, and as individuals, we have to push ourselves to become the greatest versions of ourselves in order to improve the nation, in order to move forward the movement, in order to become the great society that we aspire to be. So it starts with you. Pick up a book, pick up a weight, even if it's just at home. Like, you can read 10 pages a day. You can do some push-ups and sit-ups. Start working out regularly. I'm happy to give some advice to people on what to read, on what to prioritize to work out. I'm no social media influencer fitness dude, but I do think I've been able to chisel a lot of pretty decent physique in my spare time over the last year or two. So Daniel was a chubster. Damn, yeah, I was skinny fat, man. It was not good. Even if you look at the early Dominion Society days, like, I was not looking good, guys. I was not looking good. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Look at this. Share screen. Share. Like, have you seen this video? I'm way bigger here. Maybe I'm just being self-conscious, but like, you can do it too. You just have to take it seriously. You have to work at it every day. And like, to be honest, like it starts as a chore, but like you fall in love with it. I've been injured the last few weeks. I strained something in my shoulder doing a dumbbell chest press too deeply. So I've been taking I keep trying to get back into things, but I keep slowing down my recovery. But I miss it. Taking control over your body, like it's much. I know we're all over Jordan Peterson, but before you change the world, you must clean up your room. Like it works for that rule is true, first of all, and it works for your body just as much as it works for your bedroom. If you can't clean up your body, if you can't treat your body like a temple, if you can't build muscle, how are you going to build a society? How are you going to build an organization? So please do take yourself more seriously. I'm down 20 pounds this year. Do some push-up, boys. Congratulations, man. Keep it going. But yeah, it's not. Yeah, some of you are probably skinny and need to put on weight. Some of you are probably fat and need to put off weight. I'm in the middle of a cut right now. I bulked up a bit during the winter. I want to cut down a bit for the summer. That's kind of the cycle. I'm happy. Maybe we could do a whole stream on this sometime. Talk a bit about exercise and strategy there, because I have learned a lot about that over that last year. My cortisol was high. It was not a good time in my life. Now you can see that I'm thriving now, that I'm actually doing something that I love, that I believe in, that I'm not trying to like contort my views into the PPC, that I'm not overeating and coping and all this stuff. That now I'm really in my element, and I think we can all get there together, and we'll be better off for it. Best way to lose weight, it's a calorie deficit. You got to start counting calories. I make sure you're getting your 10K steps in a day, and you're in a calorie deficit. But I also wouldn't blindly lose weight. Like putting off weight is a good opportunity to build muscle, because you already have all those fat stores to convert. So I would don't just like the first time I lost weight, I just cut calories, cut carbs hard, started doing a lot of cardio, all these things. And then I got to my goal weight, and then I look myself in the mirror. I'm like, oh shit, I'm just skinny now. And then I had to go back and start building up muscle. And then that's a big challenge. So I would not just blindly lose weight, like make sure you're putting on muscle, so you kind of like meet yourself in the middle, or else it's not much better to be super skinny than it is to be super fat. Well, I mean, obviously being super fat is really unhealthy, but aesthetically speaking, they're both bad. Yeah. So yeah, that's my advice. We have to become the best versions of ourselves. Start testing out your style, start exercising, take your life seriously. And I mean, everything will flow. You'll fix your hormonal balances. You'll become more confident. Like you really will become the best version of yourself. So that's the big things I had to cover today. If you guys want to talk about more about lifestyle stuff, please let me know. If you want book recommendations, hit me up at info@dominionsociety.ca. If you want, some workout advice or food advice, I'll do my best in any of those. Again, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a fitness trainer or whatever. I'm a layman, but I'm happy to help you guys. I think we all have to get better together. So it was a fun stream today. I know today was kind of all over the place. Harry Potter, fitness, seething about op-eds, immigration, but I think it was a lot of fun. So I hope you guys all have a great night. We'll be back next week at the same time. Who knows what we'll talk about? I still kind of want to run through that whole remigration plan, but maybe we'll end up just talking about lifting weights. Whatever needs to happen. But My message for you today is accept that you're not good enough and start working to become better, because that's just the reality of the situation. So on that note, have a great night and long live Canada.